Hello, everybody. I'm Claudio Mantero, the coordinator of Civitas Destination Project. And today with me, there is Lucia Cristea, is the managing director of EIP. Is our consultant in Civitas Destination, dealing with the political committee, and was with us with understand better the issue of tourism and sustainable transport. So this is the topic of today. Lucia will help us to join the input we collected during Civitas Destination Project, and we will understand during these 10-12 minutes how tourism and sustainable mobility can live together, and they can improve the quality of life of tourists and residents. So please, Lucia.
Thank you, Claudio. I think this is a very nice nice subject, and the work I have done together with you in these last few months, it was very exciting, and I really thank you for this opportunity. It is a subject that I really enjoyed, and it's much more important to talk nowadays about integration, and one of the major integration indeed is about the transport and tourism. Now, I would like to to speak about a few aspects, about what we have done in this research. Some of the trends about demographic and tourism, some features of insularity and transport in tourist destinations, issues about COVID, and some illustration of transport and tourism in destinations. And for the audience, some key messages that they can take away with them. Now, if I start with the population, always I like to look at population at large, and I always like to look at the groups of ages in population. Why? Because I can group them on generations. In mindset, in a project that we have studied in at the beginning of Horizon 2020. In fact, I think this was one of the first projects funded by Horizon 2020. We look at the core values of generations. This allows us to understand what are the behavioral aspects, how these core aspects of generations are influencing the behavior. And notice I'm not saying mobility behavior or tourist behavior, the behavior in general. So you can see here on the screen the large amount of population in millennials group, in prime busters group, and baby bloomers. This more or less is between 25 years old and 65. This is the core part of population, but three types of characteristics. This allows us to understand how we can develop new products and services both in tourism and in mobility. Please bear with me. These are the figures, trends put together a few years ago in 2018. It was before COVID, so bear with me with the statistics are not COVID related yet. Now, if we look at the trends towards 2050, these are the trends. As you can see, the larger population of the groups that we discussed earlier, they are going quite old, and this is what the specialists, especially the sociologists and psychologists called the aging of the population. And why is important to find out these ones? Because we have to develop particular services that cater for this type of population. Now, I put here which are the main values that are transferring from a type of generation to another. Whether the older generation, I talk here about generations that lived in 50s, 60s, and even 70s. They were very competitive. You all know how it was the race for having and owning, and it was a race between everybody in possessions. This is now transited to collaborative. You know, the younger generations are collaborative. This, in fact, features the sharing perspective in mobility and even in tourism services. Whether the older population, they were trying to protect the environment. Later on, they looked towards the sustainability, and this sustainability has now very important aspects that seeded this movement for carbon reduction, and we all know what's happening these days in this matter. In terms of ownership, I said earlier that we were competitive and we want to own. We are going indeed to share now. The younger populations want to share and to experience, but don't be fooled by this issue. You know, it's sharing, it's good, but it is a personal, let's say, interest in sharing. Yes, it's not necessarily in altruistic way. And of course, the younger generations will want to have, let's say, customized services and customized issues. Yeah, everything is for them. Yeah. In terms of digital, you know, we are digital, competent at this moment. Before we weren't, you know, because only a few of us we had access to technology. But now a generation and the young ones are born with the computer, with the iPad in their hands, and this is called digital normality.
Yes, it seems really that this generation trends is affecting our way to see the life, and our lifestyle change a lot, no, Lucia?
Yes, indeed. I think this is why we have done this study, because this allowed us to understand which are the changes in the lifestyle, because these changes in the lifestyles allows us to understand which are the propensity to use a certain type of services, be it transport, be it health, being tourism, whatever type of services. This propensity of issues or key values allows us to let's say shape a certain lifestyle. And here, of course, there are many other issues. I mentioned the technology. You know, the technology was an important factor that allowed us to live from anywhere and to work from anywhere. This is one of the issues that I put there, somewhere versus anywheres. You know, because nowadays you can live in any country, or you can work from top of the mountain without any problem. We mentioned about the disabled population too, you know, and this is about the aging population, and this is all about the issues related with how the aging population comes with certain let's say characteristics, you know, health issues, and we have to cater for them.
Yeah, and all these demographic trends surely has an impact on tourism. And what are the figures, Lucia, about tourism and transport?
Well, we looked into this one, Claudio, and I think what was very interesting for me, it's the number of tourists that was generated, you know, due to or because of the economic growth. And I think this economic growth is one of the factors. The technology is a second factor, and I think because it allowed the access to all the places, you know, through all the let's say facilities that you can and the accessibility to different places that you can go. You know, you can buy them online, but also the offer, you know, to access them, it's higher. There are two graphs here that we have put. One is for number of the tourist arrivals in all continents. It's very surprising that Europe has the larger number of tourists. this has to be probably taken into account by tourists in themselves, you know, from in stricto sensu, but could be also for other type of category. However it is, you know, whatever is behind the number, it's very interesting that Europe developed this important, let's say, interest in terms of tourism. And in the lower graphic, you can see the how the growth in number of tourists was in the destinations countries.
Yeah. And following, so coming more to focus on tourism, what are the trends, Lucia? What do you see?
Well, I think based on the characteristics of the populations and all the technology development and all the trends, it's not only these ones that we looked into, but there are other macroeconomic factors that we have to take into account when we let's generate an hypothesis about this future trends in tourism. And one of them, of course, is digitalization. You know, it's very important. You either can travel online nowadays, yes, you can be a virtual traveler, or the technology allows you to have access to the facilities, you know, to tourist facilities. Yeah, I think it's very interesting to take into account that this responsible tourism. You know, many do not know, but the hotels, you know, that have developed their green labels or the environmental friendly, let's say, labels because of tourism, because they want it to be, let's say, sustainable and protecting the environment, and they wanted to pass on their experiences to the hotels, and they wanted to know that their efforts are taken on both the hoteliers and the hospitality industry in general. So it is very interesting how these are you know, these mechanisms, you know, of influence between the let's say the tourists, you know, the end users and the service providers. You know, they are influencing them, you know, themselves.
And it seems that the tourism, the rising trend of green tourism, could be really walk together with sustainable mobility. What do you think, Lucia?
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think sustainable mobility, it's part of the experience, as I put there, and we discussed this before. I think it's so important to take into account, either as mobility provider or tourism provider, service provider, you know, that people want to have experiences rather than products, you know, either mobility or tourism. So this link between them, the knitting between the core aspects between mobility and tourism, are very important to make the tourist, you know, a valuable experience. Equally, we have to think about the inhabitants. You know, they will have a very nice experience in their own city if everything will be very well integrated.
Yeah, and speaking about island, we can move about cities. Sorry. So we spoke about so the importance of residents. So in our project, we were a quite special project because we have 6 islands. So what do you think about these opportunities for the project?
I think it was an amazing project from this point of view. I think personally, I really I remember the first, let's say, first discussions in the proposal phase, you know, probably 2 or 3 years before we started the project, and with a core group of people, you know, we really looked into how we can link these two important aspects in important sectors of economy of islands. But I think, Claudio, I think you know more about islands. You live on an island at this moment. What are your suggestions? What are your issues about, or what are your, let's say, experiences, and what would you like to share about the insularity? We all know that it's very important to understand more about the core aspects of insularity.
Yes, Lucia, thank you. So there are 4 points that I think are quite well highlighted in this slide. So the small dimension, first of all, the islands are limited in space, and but each of one are rich with natural and cultural resources. So they are proud of their peculiarity, their specific identity. Together with this is a place that physically, not only physically, but only mentally make you feel a part. And this is very good, especially when you want to make innovation or you want to test something different. And especially we tested in destination this feeling of try something new in sustainable mobility. And the last is the geographical isolation. Continuing, yeah, please, Michelle.
What are the key aspects from your point of view? Because these are the main features, but there are particular aspects that you noticed not only in destinations, but from your life day to day on an island. I'm sure that you have a good experience, and I know that you have a very good background in studying insularity and issues related with mobility and on island. And I think these particularities would be very important that those on the continent, if you allow me to express myself like this, would be nice to know about it.
Yeah. So first of all, the first important feature of our project is that we are 6 islands, and but we cover 3 typology of completely different islands. So we have the outermost region, and we have Canary Island and Madeira. We have the Mediterranean island, so we have Elba and Crete with Retimno. And we have the last group of islands, which are the state islands. So state islands like Malta and Cyprus. So in each island, there are special challenges and opportunities. Here in the slide, some of the topics. So the limited economy of scale, the limited agglomeration of positive externalities, because obviously the space and the markets are unlimited. The prices in many cases are higher, and for mobility this is evident when you have to purchase a bus or an infrastructure or material. And all these create delays because the providers are far, and there is the difficulties, especially in this economy that is fast to reply. It's difficult for us to create stock, big stock. So we have to work with short stock and waiting time delayed. And other cases like sometimes the lack of skills, because obviously the small market for human resources created difficulties to access to competencies. And other features are, for example, the environment, which is more vulnerable. There are more exposed to fires, more exposed to floods, more exposed to the natural disasters.
Yeah.
And yeah, and all this make resilience in Ireland maybe really a core topic, no? Because they have to survive, and resilience is related with the strategy to survive in a long and adapt our economy, our system to long-run changes.
Yes, you're right. I think I will add, because you mentioned resilience, I will add governance. If you have a fragmented, let's say, institutional framework as it is on an island, to be very fair, unfortunately, the resilience, aspects that you are saying could be, let's say, influenced. Therefore, I think in destination, it was a very good example how different different institutional bodies started to work together to prevent any further fragmentation, because this is a very interesting topic you know very well, I like very much this topic. As soon as we start integrating, and as soon as we start communicate across the sectors, the things either on an island or and on the continent will be much more better. So I think the governance issues, it's a core topic. I think I consider here, and we agreed on this one, that the main, let's say, 3 aspects in regarding transport in tourist destinations are accessibility, the integration, and inclusiveness. So the transport has to be accessible, integrated, and inclusive. What do you think about this? You work in transport.
Only a short highlight regarding the need that tourism has to focus, because tourism, as you explained very well, the demography, the trends in demography make more elder people able to travel. So there are many elder people that travel and they need specific requirements for accessibility. So I think tourism has to bet more, and sustainable mobility together has to bet more and more on accessibility for tourism, not only disabled, but mainly elder people. No? I think this is the focus, only to give some highlights, Lucia.
I think accessibility refers here, I think, also to the accessibility to the island, to the tourist destinations, and how the transport in itself can make the let's say, tourist attractions accessible. And I always say that if you plan for all, you can plan for, you know, it's much more easier to do it. So therefore, your offer, your transport offer, it's inclusive. And of course, nowadays with let's say large offer of mobility services and products, they have to be integrated, and especially in a tourist destination, because this is the core part of their experience, you know, and the flow of this experience in tourist destinations. I was thinking of if you want to talk about a few examples from our project, because I think we have very good examples from our cities of how they developed, you know, the link between transport and tourism. And I think one of the major, from my perspective, one of the core issues and the core achievements in our city was how they done different let's say products and services cross sector. You know, they developed together this one, and of course they use the certain type of communication or the same type of communication. You have been developing something like this. Can you give us your experience?
Yeah, maybe only two examples. So the cross-sector cooperation is at informative level. So you can see on the right, an app was developed in Limassol to join touristic information with the transport information. So the idea is to have only one tool that can inform you or give you the information about touristic spots and mobility options. The other kind of cross-sector cooperation is, for example, in Madeira and in Las Palmas. In Madeira, we tested the public transport friend. So this idea that when you buy a public transport ticket, you can use the same ticket to have discount in plenty of services, shops, museums. And this is a way to bring more value to public transport, but a value that is relevant for tourists. No? So in such way, we try to bring touristic value to a mobility product. And in Las Palmas, with the live ticket, it was a nice story, because basically Las Palmas, with the data of tourism board, look at how many days the tourists stay at the destination and decide to bet on one day, so to tailor-made the ticket on the stay of the tourist. So in this way was born this integrated one-day ticket or multi-day ticket in Las Palmas, together with a point, a credit system, green credit system to add advantage and discounts in shops. So this is the kind of experience we tested.
Yeah, very interesting. Pointing out on the screen, this application allows the disabled people to know where to access the beaches, how and where, which are the points to access the beaches. And this is very interesting. One of the measures that I really like in destinations, how disabled people have access to the beaches and to the sea. Excellent example of collaboration at local level. I think that talking about islands is very important to especially in destinations, I learned that for islands is far more important the sustainability, and any type of, let's say, vehicle that let's say damage or influence negatively the sustainability, the island authorities prefer to keep them away. And I noticed that there are many islands that prefer to encourage, or to discourage the use of own, let's say, vehicles coming to the islands. And this is a very good example in Elba. When we've been in Elba, we saw this action done by our colleagues in Elba. Do you have any experiences? But I know that you have done quite a lot to promote this type of measures.
Yeah, in this case was nice. In the project we tested in Elba, but also in Madeira. So the touristic actors like hoteliers, like hostels and other places to stay are like ambassadors of sustainable mobility. So they provide information, they provide, like in this case, we are in a hotel reception, no? So, and the idea is always like this. So we explain that the tourism actors has to fulfill, so to provide the right service to each customer. So, and when a tourist asks for sustainable mobility option, the tourism operators has to be ready to provide such information. And so this is the measure we test.
I think there are many examples of green recognitions. I think recognition. I think cities, they wanted to have a recognition of their efforts for sustainable mobility, and not only for sustainable tourism services, for sustainable services in general in the cities. I think this is one of the nicest experience in destinations from my side, how the cities tried to push the sustainability with all the efforts, all the integrated efforts. And I think this is one of the examples in our colleagues in Limassol, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm sure that there are other examples in other cities.
Yeah, perfectly agree. So in this case, Limassol Tourist Board launched this prize, and this is very important for tourism operators such as hotels and travel agency and tourism operators.
Yeah. Well, Claudio, we spoke about this, but it's impossible to talk about transport and tourism and not talk about COVID, because we have been hit very badly in this year by this situation. And the first sectors that dropped, that were put down, were the transport and the tourism. And in fact, few evidence started to emerge, and this is an example for the study done by McKinsey in United States. It's quite a complicated study, complicated graph. I would like you to concentrate on the black part of it, which represents the figures at the end of March. This means that the entire industry, irrespective of the sector, was down. But if you look 2 months later, at the end of July, the loss done by the travel and hospitality industry is the highest, and this shows the impact of the COVID to the sectors. We knew this one, but this evidence, it allows us to understand better the perspective. And if we look at the same issue, but on the countries, on certain countries, by evidence here by the same study, the black dots there are as black they are. It's the problems in taking up let's say the economy in these countries. And the only country that has a bit of let's say a movement in travel and hospitality is China, and I think here is due to national flights. But if you look at the only two countries that are in destinations, Italy and France, they are and Spain, sorry, Italy and Spain, apologies, they are still very dark. Now, in terms of air passenger, we all know the figures drop in Europe, you know, and these are some figures at the end of March this year, published by the European Commission. There were only few statistics available in this period, but the European Commission use this one to create new policies. And one of the first, let's say, regulations that European Commission did after the pandemic were, let's say, was towards reviving the transport in Europe and the tourism sector. And I think this is, in my opinion, historical values. I think we have discussed very nicely about what we found in our research, and I think it's valuable to put together. We put together this messages, takeaway messages that everybody could understand and build up on them. From my point of view, and I think there are few relevant examples for let's say key issues that each of any touristic let's say city or destination should take into account. But I think it's very interesting for those ones that are not as touristic, like our civitas cities, to take into account too. I will talk about few, but please, if you have any ideas, would you prefer to start?
Yeah, exactly. Here are some topics we selected together. So, and the more relevant are related to resilience, which is one of the flagship concept in destination, especially because we have island, and the island are the place, the best place in which since the beginning we experience resilience. So struggle to change and to adapt to the long run situations that appears for environment or economy situation. Well, obviously, I think another topic is the integration between and cooperation between actors. So we discovered that businesses in tourism, in health, can work in a very interesting way with sustainable mobility, with partnership, with cross discount, with integration of businesses. So there is a great space to deepen the integration between different markets. Obviously, with the COVID situation, as Lucia explained, that affected very much the islands, because in islands the tourism has a role in the economy more relevant. The idea of trust and build trust and confidence is more and more essential. So the idea, the seals of safe and clean place, safe and clean establishment. So all the seals that assure the safety are relevant. And obviously, because we are islands and it's more difficult for us to have a physical contacts, the platforms and the tools are essential to exchange experience and avoid mistakes and find synergies between islands, because the trends are very, as we shown since the beginning, the trends are common, no, Lucia?
Yes, I think you're right. I totally agree with what you said. I want only to point out that in tourist destinations, a big factor is the seasonality. You know, sometimes the population is doubled, and sometimes in certain places tripled in a very short period of time, and this puts a lot of pressure on local authorities and the local businesses, but any type of institution or sector. Therefore, this is why the integration between sectors, as you mentioned, is not only the business, but is the high-level policies have to be harmonized in such a way to look at the core aspects of the policies towards the vision for the the region, for the place and for the region, to cater for the needs for people, for the inhabitants, but for the tourists. So all these aspects have to be integrated. It's not, we found out that it's not necessary to take into account the integration between transport and tourism, which is essential in tourist destinations. But nowadays, due to the pandemic and due to other factors, it's very important to take into account the links with the health sector. And I'm not saying from stricter sense of the active mobility, but high level, let's say, aspects in integration of the strategies. This is extremely important, and indeed, by having this very good integration, you build a communication that between the institutional actors that provides the trust and confidence for all, you know. And from my point of view, I think it's very important to direct people, you know, interested parties from across Europe and world to the experiences we collected from Civitas destinations. I think we have a very good platform of followers where of information, of knowledge collected during the project. And I think it's a very valuable source of information of how you can implement different measures in mobility measures in touristic destinations, and how you can achieve the integration between them. And of course, promote yourself. My advice is to promote yourself. Use the social media as much as possible and the virtual channels to promote yourselves, especially nowadays when people are in lockdown or forced to stay more in an isolation, yeah, and the people would like to travel. And I think providing these facilities to travel will inspire people later on to travel. And we do hope that this will last. This situation will last. Let's say very short, and the future normality, let's put it like this. I don't like to say new normality, but the future normality will see us together and not virtual like this. Can I thank you very much for this month's working with you. It was really a pleasure to work with you this last year on this subject, and I will really miss our our conversation and dialogue.
Thank you very much, Lucia. The same for me. The tourism and sustainable mobility will be a very good platform topic to work in the future. So this is not the last contact. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.